Dear Managing Director of National Water, dear managers and dear colleagues. All yet here? For those I haven't met yet, my name is Thèse Marine Colon. I am a researcher and teacher at AgroParisTech. And of 2014, I presented a PhD thesis on performance contracts at National Water. This work has been financed by the French Ministry of Sustainable Development and the Chaire Water for All. You are about to watch a short video that introduces this PhD thesis that I have been able to complete thanks to your warm welcome in Kampala in 2010 and 2011. It was a great experience for me as a water engineer and as an academic. My thesis has been awarded 3 doctoral prizes as Best Doctoral Thesis presented in 2014 on public management, sustainable development and accounting. I have to share this honor with you. Before getting right into the subject, I have to say this is an academic exercise that does not aim at solving a professional problem. It is more an invitation for you to have a break in your hectic life of managers, step back and look maybe differently at the fascinating path of national water. To me, national water is emblematic of a new management model in the water sector, the new public management. This doctrine invites public organizations to adopt managerial practices coming from the private sector. It has been spreading since the 80s from the UK public service to various countries and sectors, including the water sector. Many research works have showed deleterious effects of this kind of reform. However, little is known about the impact of such reforms on the water sector. National Water offered a great opportunity to analyze a key principle of this kind of doctrine, output-based management, through the implementation of performance contracts. In this video, to make it simple, performance contracts are both the contracts signed between the government and the utility, and the contract signed within the utility between the top management and the managers. In this PhD thesis, performance contracts are not only management tools setting incentive mechanisms, performance measure and control system. They are also seen as part of a broad change in the mindset, representations and way of working within the Ugandan water sector. This PhD provides with an interpretation of why performance contracts have been introduced and what kind of changes they have produced within the utility and more broadly on the water sector in Uganda. This work is qualitative, mainly based on a 2-month fieldwork in Kampala in 2010. I used various data collection methods, semi-structured interviews from managing director to plumbers, but also with key partners, observation of work in progress and of meetings, and archival work to understand the history of Uganda and the history of the Ugandan water sector. My understanding of the management at National Water has been discussed at various occasions with the managing director and the managers. For instance, in 2010, I made a presentation at the Evaluation and Negotiation Days in Tororo. I also organized a workshop for managers during the Leadership Summit at IREC in 2011. This close relationship with the utility and its partners enabled me to develop a down-to-earth vision of the utility. Now, let's move on to the findings. The central idea of this PhD thesis is that performance contracts both resulted from and contributed to the embedding of a new culture in the Ugandan water sector. I called this new culture the market logic, referring to a new concept of a dominant organization theory called the neo-institutional sociology. The originality of my approach was to retrace the relative influence of the market logic as regard to the two other logics found in the water sector. These two other logics are the state logic and the engineer logic. In that analysis, I highlighted the role of performance contracts in making the market logic dominant, not only in the thinking, but also in the doings in the Ugandan water sector. Let me tell you why I have said that performance contracts have resulted from the embedding of this new culture. The embedding of the new culture started at the socio-political scale with the return of stability in 1986 and the dedication of the then new government to implement the structural adjustment plan. Changes started at national water with the implementation of a new public management reform aiming at making it financially viable, to give it a commercial orientation and to make it an autonomous body. What may have also eased the nesting of new ideas within the utility may be that the reform started when the utility was almost destroyed with damaged infrastructure and organization. Despite its amazing progress during the 90s, the utility failed to meet the expectations and was heavily indebted towards donors. So privatization was seen as the best fate for the utility, which is consistent with the leading idea in the sector at that time. However, the privatization was postponed due to a too difficult financial situation. Performance contracts were introduced in 2000 to prepare national water for privatization. This is when the new managing director used the performance contracts to prove that national water could act like a private company while remaining public, which made the privatization project not consistent anymore. These performance contracts were adopted in a very specific context. The staff had been trained previously, the infrastructures had been refurbished, and the new managing director in 1998 had the right profile to develop the performance contracts. So conditions were in favor of the development of the performance contracts. Let me tell you now why I have said that performance contracts may have contributed to the embedding of a new logic in the Ugandan water sector and especially at national water. While the context and conditions were favorable, the ways of working and thinking at national water had to evolve for and through the implementation of performance contracts. From 2000 to 2011, which is the period covered by my research, performance contracts have not stopped evolving along with the utility. Little by little, performance contracts became key in the radical changes in the utility. For instance, the sociology of the utility dramatically changed, with engineers leaving more place to managers trained in business and economics. Performance contracts have supported the decentralization of operations and have become key in human resource management, information management, planning and strategy. They provided with a structure to run the utility. This case is rare. We could have expected a ceremonial use of performance contracts. What I mean by ceremonial use is an adoption of performance contracts seeking conformity to a demand from government and donors without really changing the ways of working within the utility. On the contrary, in the case of Uganda, performance contracts triggered off sustainable changes. These changes are sustainable because not only they have changed the priorities, but they have also changed the people and the organization. Of course, there have been some challenges in the implementation of performance contracts. For instance, in 2010, National Water was struggling in its fight against non-revenue water. There was huge needs to invest in asset management and sanitation. However, National Water had become a strong organization, professional, able to question its practices and evolve. Let me finally share 5 lessons with you. First, under certain conditions, new public management reforms may strengthen the utilities and the water sector. Second, culture is crucial for change. Shared values, norms, and representation may drive our daily action more than rational thinking in some cases, and this needs to be understood. Third, there is a value in analyzing change with a long-term perspective and a qualitative analysis, because deep change may not be measurable and takes time. Fourth, performance contracts have to be flexible and evolve along with the utility and the pressing issues of the moment. Fifth, performance contracts produce information and give an opportunity to negotiate. That way, performance contracts have contributed in Uganda to the building of a regulation scheme. Of course, this is just a glance at my 400-page PhD thesis. I am looking forward to discussing my work with you. It was a great honor to meet such a unique utility from which the academic world still has a lot to learn. We balenio and goodbye.